nice to be with all of you here today. I hope you're doing well and that you are safe over there. I want to thank Informa Market and Renewable Energy India for the invitation. The future that we are heading will require a lot of renewable energy. We know that the ideal mixture would be hydro, solar and wind. Among the three of them, we're talking about between 80 to 85% of the total amount of renewables that we will have. Background, I've been doing renewable energy for around 15 years. I'm pretty much in solar in around 30 countries. What is great about solar is one of the technologies that we know that every year keeps improving itself, and the room of improvement actually is quite important. The efficiency keeps growing and still we have a long way to go. Compared to other renewable technologies, solar has a tremendous potential. The good thing about wind is that out of all the renewables, when you manufacture a wind turbine, that turbine pays back the CO2 that you emit when you build the turbine in a very, very short span of time. Meanwhile, solar takes a little bit longer and the rest even longer. In order to get 100% grid, in 100% renewable energy grid, what we need is to combine a lot of renewables. We need to incorporate biomass, biogas, geothermal, tidal, and all different sort of storage systems in place. As you know, hydro works as a storage system on its own also, but we have another 15, not only lithium-ion and zinc and well, plenty other technologies. We need to put all of them together in order to be able to have an effective system. Nowadays, we also know that there are a lot of revolutions on the mobility side, for example, that electric cars are a boom. So we need to be quite careful with all the revolutions that involve a lot of manufacturing, because the resources that we have are very limited and very precious. So if we are going to manufacture new technologies that are less evil than the current ones, we need to take the opportunity to manufacture less in a much better way and start changing the way we think. We need to challenge a lot of premises that we always thought that they were there to stay. As for example, why to own a car? Should I own a car? Do I really need to buy a car? If there are solutions, a lot of cities now are providing solutions in transport, in biking, electric scooters, plenty of options. So we not necessarily always need to buy a car. The rate of utilization of a car is very, very low. And we know that in order to manufacture that car, it requires a lot of energy. So we need to be very careful of what we call revolutions, because sometimes these revolutions actually make things worse. So the ideal is to rethink our system, the way we consume. We need to add the word less to pretty much everything we do. We need to buy less, actually ideally buy as minimum as we can. We need to build new construction. Also, we need to do less of those new constructions that harm the environment and go into reserve areas. The biodiversity, the loss of biodiversity is one of the key things that we should be taking care of. I want to emphasize the fact that awareness is essential, education also, and eradicate poverty. A lot of people in poverty, they need to burn and use woods and small pieces of coal and different things that they have because they don't have other alternatives. So we really need to tackle poverty. Poverty is one of the critical issues. We need to try to make everybody part of the system that we are in place. Besides all of this, one thing that we need to be also understanding is that now there are new technologies that we can use, for example, hydrogen, carbon capture, but that we need to be quite careful, because a lot of technologies that will work in the future, but they are not working now, the narrative is that we need to pay them a lot of attention. But actually, we should be working more with what we know that works and it's actually working now. Because we don't have a lot of time to experiment. The timeline that we have is very short. As you know, in 8 years to 9 years, we will be crossing another tipping point with irreversible change in nature and in a lot of different areas. The current narrative is quite complicated because there is corporations in itself, they will always try to do everything what they can in order to survive. So they will defend that either hydrogen or carbon capture or nuclear energy will be the solution, and we need to invest heavily into them. I believe that we need to acknowledge them. We need to, of course, invest some part in them, but we also need to find solutions that work effectively in the short term. Middle term and long term is a luxury that we don't have now. So in the short term, we know that solar, wind, and pretty much hydro will be the fundamentals into the fundamental solutions here. And I don't want to forget also that in order for us to change, we need to be the change that we want to see out there, that we want to see in the world. We also need to relearn and rethink how we eat. Agriculture is one of the main issues on emissions, animals. So there are a lot of solutions with proteins, replacing meat and other chicken. So we know that a lot of scientists are working out there, but we need to do our part. We need to understand that first, corporations should be environmental organizations by definition. The sole purpose of a corporation is to keep selling and keep moving forward and growing, and that in the current world doesn't make a lot of sense. The way in order to grow in a healthy way, it doesn't mean to sell more, to produce more and have a major waste. We need a circular economy in which we can recycle, we can reuse, and we can reduce. And ideally, in a perfect world, we are not getting any waste at all in this whole cycle. So I think that there is a lot of thinking. We need to challenge ourselves all the time about do we really need this equipment or this new phone or television, and do we need to buy something that needs to travel across the world to come to us? And that is how we start making different decisions, and that how we spill out into people next to us about this new way of thinking and philosophy. So I want to leave you with my final 2 cents would be, it's very important to challenge all the time, not only the status quo, the current system, also your own way of see things and understand and think about things. And it's very important that in the next election, when you're going to vote, you start paying a lot of attention to the candidates and what they can do and they can't. Governments are key in all this equation because we know that lobbies and corporations are quite close to them. But we need to demand governments for them to really protect us, the planet, and actually all what is important for our kids to get. The minimum we can do for our kids actually would be to give them the world that we received. So thank you so much again for this possibility. It has been a pleasure. I hope that the things that I have shared with you can help you to think and rethink things, and I hope to see you soon.